flakes of rain, which will be heavy at times. The rain should die out later this afternoon, though, with a cloud breaking to allow some evening sunshine through later. Highs of 17 Celsius.
Have lunch with Allan Beswick. BBC Radio Manchester.
Hiya. You all right? Oh, good. Good. Shall we... I never know what to start with. Start with a phone number, just in case you don't know it. 0161 228 2255. The email address, for the same reason, really. And indeed, for the same purpose. Except, not orally. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. That's okay, we got that. And I'm getting to the stage now, because it's been, maybe 6 weeks, that I can do the text number without reading it. I know, you're impressed. I am. Let's give it a try. 07786 206 951. I'll just check. Hey, knockout! Brilliant. 07786 206 951. I'm going to try and get through the day today without any vocal faux pas, such as United Condom yesterday, which seemed to cause a bit of a stir. Mind you, isn't that what it's for? Anyway, steady. So I may have to speak slowly, because it's when I speak quickly that the mouth can't keep up. It goes all flappily like that. Exactly. Steady now. And what was the other one you said? Oh, the mathematics. Now we've got mixed opinions here. We are divided. You think the congestion charge is a bit of a beggar, whether or not we'll get a referendum and what the question will be and who will put it, and will we all vote together, or will we all vote against, or will we all vote in independent count? We've no idea. We don't know what's going on. No. Yesterday we thought we understood. Today it's all in turmoil again. Somebody's shaking the bottle. No, you know the little snow shaker. It's like that, the congestion charge. It all settles down. You just see the picture coming through the wind, and then somebody picks it up, and it's gone again. Well, we had that yesterday. We have a similar dilemma, because some people think I said that £25 a week is £100 a year. And other people say, no, you never said that. You said £100 a month, and therefore £1,000 a year, given allowances for holidays. Personally, I don't care. But I've been stopped in the street. Well, I say the street, if you can count a supermarket as a street. But I've been stopped, and people said, you did, you know. And I was having this conversation with the lady who was saying, you did say that. And a chap came along and said, no, he never. And I, what's going on? I just want a tin of beans, for God's sake. Well, they weren't. They were black-eyed beans. How do they get them black eyes? Does it involve a lot of eating? How do they make black-eyed beans? Weird. I think we've got that out of the way now. I think we're all right. We can move on. But I will try to speak slowly and not fluff any of my words. So, there. That might get a bit tedious. No more tedious than the rest of the stuff, but tedious nonetheless. There's a woman in the paper today, in the Daily Express today. Pause. Whilst you find it. You see? Actually, this is pretty clever. You don't have to do as much work. Oh, I think I might do it slowly. All the time. Oh, yes. There's a woman, and she's in the paper. Well, there's a photograph of her and her story. And she's wearing a bit of a caftan, but, well, when you do stories about women, you have to say what they're wearing, apparently. You know, like when Her Majesty goes... Her Majesty's in Preston today, handing over the colours, as it's called, to the Duke of Lancaster Regiment, because she is, of course, the Duke of Lancaster, despite not being a bloke. Right? So there you are, she's in Preston. Now, don't all rush at once. No. This is it. I was one drink away from the grave. Amanda Simoes... I don't know, them little triangles that burn your tongue. I think they are. Amanda Simoes, 45, had it all. A glamorous, globe-trotting job and loving partner. But she lost it all through alcoholism. She reveals here how she turned her life around. Do you know, I don't care I really don't. It was interesting, the first dozen or so people that wrote books and large articles about how they, quote, turned their life around were interesting. Because there was possibly hidden within the story, or even between the lines, there was possibly some help for somebody else, how they may get out of it. There was even the interest and the intrigue, how you get from sitting in a gutter and wee in your pants as people pass by, to being back on the straight and narrow, as it were. Interesting human interest stories. But I'm fed up of them now. There are too many. I'm not for one moment suggesting that there are too many people who are recovering alcoholics. Good luck to them. I hope they continue on the path of righteousness. But I think I'm fed up of them bleating at me in the papers and on the telly. Although on the telly I tend to turn it off. And I usually... The trouble with the newspapers is I have this weird feeling that it's partly my job to read them. So whereas I read newspapers because I like it, sometimes I get to a page and I think, oh, I can't be bothered reading that. And then I think, now, come on, you've got responsibilities. Have a look. Just skim read it if that's all you can do. So I skim read it. And she is one boring hag. I bet she was much more interesting when she was smashed out of her mind. And certainly an easier lay. But much more interesting, well, it's how it works, much more interesting when she was out of her mind. Drinking had become part of my life. Yes, dear, you're an alcoholic. Once you say to people, I'm an alcoholic, or indeed I've been one, we work that out for ourselves, because we're not complete cretins. We work out that being drunk and getting drink is part of your life. I think it comes with the territory of being... I spoke a bit quickly then, I may have fluffed a word, but it comes with the territory of being an alcoholic. Yeah. It's like drug addicts, you know. They say, heroin became part of my life. Yeah, we know. That's what it means, drug addict. You know, if you just take a bit on Sundays, it's not the same thing. Over time, the way I drank began to alter. But it was such a slow and subtle change, I barely noticed what was happening. I started skipping the gym. Now, you see, you can skip in the gym. It does you good. She's skipping the gym, as opposed in the gym in the evening, going out instead with colleagues for long, boozy dinners, fuelled by red and white wine. You see, both colours of wine. No mention of rosé. What's she got against rosé? How can an alcoholic be so picky? Red and white wine, and finishing off with brandy. I know. It's not in the least bit interesting. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm inflicting it on you. Just to make the point that, right, I think in the Bible it says there will be rejoicing in heaven if one sinner repents. But not if they have to read the tripe I have to read, they won't. Tell you, I'm fed up of it. And what do you think of it?
Mornings sound better with Eamon O'Neill and Diane Oxbury.
Eamon and Diane.
Diane Clare Oxbury. Us with comprehensive under-15 girls athletics champion.
And I was a member of the award-winning Highway Code quiz team of 1963.
We've got to get that American attitude.
Go for it.
Yeah, we can do, and we have done.
Eamon and Diane and you.
We were in the Brownies and we won a competition on the best cakes of the day, and we got our prize, and they said to us, well, how have you made your cake? So being naive, we just said we used Mary Baker's cake mix, and we got disqualified.
The station with Eamon and Diane for breakfast.
She's got some figure, I will say that.
Back tomorrow morning from 6 at BBC Radio Manchester.
Fancy owning up. Delia Smith would have covered it all over, saying nothing. You like the cake, that's all that counts. That's all that counts. There. You like the cake, that's fine. You just eat it. Yeah. When I was in the Cubs, the 14th St Benedict's Warrington Cubs, I think that's a grammatical inaccuracy, so it was probably St Benedict's 14th Warrington Cubs. They were the only Catholic Cubs in Warrington at the time. And Arkayla, who was a woman, and Barlou, who was as well, got a team up of us to play cricket. Now, we know already that we were less than 11 years of age. Because when you're 11, you progress, if progress it be, from the Cubs to the Scouts, you see, which is why you don't get 19-year-old Cubs. Although I believe one or two 19-year-olds have a bit of trouble with their woggle. So what? What's up with your face? After what you did to me, I'm just having a word with the producer. After what you did to me yesterday with that text that you put up here for me to read, you're in no position to grumble and have a face on you. Where was I? Yeah. So, 11, you see, you become a scout. Not automatically. You don't just osmote. You have to leave one joint. Anyway. And so she got they got a team up to play cricket. They knew nothing about cricket. And we used to have to play in St Benedict Schoolyard on the tarmac with a tennis ball and a bat that was about as tall as us. And we had a bloke come in, Skip Taylor came in from the Scouts and taught us a bit of cricket. Not much, I'll grant you, because we were rubbish. And then we went on a Shara. Well, it were a double-decker bus, if truth be known. Do you remember the double-decker buses that had a big, long seats upstairs where 4 adults could sit? It was one of them. And then they had a gully down the right-hand side. So you went up the stairs, and then there was a gully. And then the seats were all on the left. They were quite long, but they were all on the left. They weren't very good for commuting, but they were all right for trips out. And we went. And we went from Warrington to Waterloo to play against one of the Cub Scout troops, I think they were called, in Waterloo. And we went. And we got smashed. We got absolutely... No, I don't mean we got drunk. We were scouts. Well, Cubs. Baby scouts. We were in green, woggles, tabs, all that. Arcala. We did our best. And we got thrashed. Absolutely thrashed. I don't remember the score. I just remember we were thrashed. Which was fine. We didn't mind that much. We knew we were going to get thrashed. We were playing against kids who wore whites. They actually had whites with long trousers as well, let me tell you. We were very impressed with their frocks. There were no helmets in them days, and when you're 11, a box doesn't count for much either. It's more of a rattling. And we played, and we got thrashed. And we were on the Shara coming home. And Skip Taylor, who was our sort of cricket manager, stood up and gave us a speech. And he went, blah, 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 blah. I mean, he didn't. He actually said things. And I'm sure they were magnificent and Napoleonic in their value. I'm sure they were. I'm sure they were Churchillian, on the beaches and all the rest of it. I have no idea. I don't remember anything. But I do remember how he rounded it off. Given where we were, or at least where we'd just been, where we were coming back from, he rounded it off by saying, and boys... because you all are in the Cubs. I don't know what they do now, but they were then. Boys, he said, you need not, despite the I remember it well, you need not, despite the location, perceive this for the rest of your life as your Waterloo. And stopped. He'd worked all the way up to that. And our Kayla, she was gone. Oh, she was laughing her head off. Barlow, she'd cracked off. Mind you, she just did what our Kayla did. Off she went. She had twins, you know. Yeah, not then and there. Not, you know, on the bus. She just had them. They were there. They were hers already. They were about 20 at the time. And she was laughing and these two women were laughing their heads off. And our Kayla was giggling. Barlow was giggling. Skip Taylor, he was preening himself, thinking that was brilliant. And all those kids didn't understand a word of it. Were sat there looking at him thinking... what in the name of God is going on? What's happening here? We've had to be thrashed, then we've been harangued by this clown, and then they're both laughing at us. Well, I wasn't in the Cubs much longer after that. You've met your Waterloo. You see, it was a play on the word Waterloo. And because there's a Waterloo. Well, it didn't end there. I came home, and I told this to my dad, and he said, well... because he was good at that, my dad. He explained everything that went on, and he said, well, that's because there was a great big battle at Waterloo where Napoleon was defeated by Wellington. Well, that confused me for a start, because the only Wellington in our house, there was two of them, one left, one right, and both in the cupboard. That was it, except on rainy days when they were out and about with feet in them. They were the only Wellingtons I knew, so he said Wellington beat Napoleon at Waterloo, which I thought was amazing. I was 18 before I found out that battle didn't take place in Southport.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline news.
A man armed with an axe has apologised to a mum after forcing her to stop her car in Stockport. Police say it could be a case of mistaken identity. The family of a British man convicted of murdering his wife and baby daughter in the United States are still insisting he's innocent. And if you get a co-op divvy, you're in for some good news. The Manchester-based cooperative group says members will share a record payout of more than £38 million, almost double last year's windfall. Manchester's weather mostly cloudy with some rain, highs of 17 Celsius. I'm Faye Rusco.
I've never been so offended. Malcolm says that sounds like the Crumpsel Cream Cracker Carmy Cowsy Coconut Cubs Go to Camp, which is on a My Cardin album. It's not that at all, nothing like it. And this really happened.
BBC Radio Manchester. 2020 traffic.
Well, that lane closure on the M60 clockwise on the main carriageway at junction 18 at Sinister Island, where it meets with the M62 and the M66, has been lifted, but the inside lane still closed on the entry slip from the Sinister Island roundabout. Now, the reason for all of this is because of a collision involving 3 lorries, and traffic still queuing back to junction 17 at Prestwich. If you're heading through Manchester using Great Ancoat Street on the A665, it's partially blocked either side of the carriageway because of a collision that happened earlier this afternoon between Port Street and Laystall Street. That collision involved 2 cars on the pavement near the entrance to the Ancoats retail park, just opposite the Ilver store. Now, emergency services are still on scene and are partially blocking the junction. Delays are forming behind those vehicles, so do take it carefully. Aside from that, though, everything seems to be moving well on the M602 in and out of Manchester, and no reported delays on the M67 from junction 4 Hyde through towards junction 24 Denton Island. Don't forget, if you can update me further, call in hands-free on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
Decongesting Manchester, one car at a time. 2020 traffic.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Right, we better get going now. I've got that off my chest. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And of course you can text on 07786 206 951. Dead easy. There are 2 stories that sort of conflict with each other in the papers today. Flick, no, it's not her. It's not Flick. No, I've forgotten who it is. I'll find it and then I won't be wrong. Remember the speaking slow... Yeah, Angela Epstein. I thought it was Flick Everett, but it's not. It's Angela Epstein in the MEN. And she says there's a photograph of the funeral cortege, well, at least the hearse, the funeral cortege bearing the coffin of Corporal Sarah Bryant, the first British woman to die in Afghanistan. And she's driven through the streets of Watton Bassett in Wiltshire following her return to RAF Lynham. And it's quite moving that people do turn out and say, look, welcome home. I know. In terms of the woman herself, she's dead and all the rest of it. But her family will be, comforted to some extent to know that the public at least support the military in that way, and that's a good thing. I'm not going to go at that. But what Angela Epstein says in the evening news is, pain that says frontline is no place for a woman. Now there's a thing. Frontline is no place for a woman. What do you think? I know there's lots of old soldiers, sailors and airmen. And I know the rules about women serving on the front line, but if we're going to have women who are part of the unit... Now, in my day, and I suspect most other blokes' days, and women's days as well, but in most other people's days, the military did have women. The women, as indeed was this lass that's been killed, were in the intelligence corps. The serving women who were not in specialists like catering and things like that were in the Women's Royal Armoured Corps, the Army Corps, the RACs as we call them. And now, of course, they're no longer a separate unit with a separate management, if you like, a separate cadre and all the rest of it. They're now just ordinary members of the forces, except the parachute regiment. I don't think there's many in there, but they're just ordinary members of the forces. But there's still this conceit that women don't serve on the front line. Why not? Why not? Why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? They are as able to fire a rifle or stop a bullet, as we've seen. They're as able to fire a rifle as stop a bullet as a bloke. So why not? And I say there are two stories that seem to contradict each other. Well, OK, that's that one individual's opinion. But she speaks for many. Like a lot of correspondents, she speaks for many. But then you look at the front page of the Daily Mail, and it says there, women to be more equal than men. This is the bill put before Parliament yesterday by Harriet Harman. The new equality bill will also force firms to reveal the salary gap between their male and female staff to highlight how women have slipped behind and shame employers into bringing them into line. Now, if women are going to, and I'm not having a go at women here, I kind of like women, if truth be told, but if women are going to insist on equal pay, then they have to surely insist on equal work for that pay. Whatever work that is, surely. It can't be any other way. So, if they're going to be serving soldiers, they have to be. I'm not talking about those that might volunteer to, above and beyond their volunteer of joining, surely. They have to volunteer when they sign on the line and say, yes, I'll be a soldier. They have to simultaneously, because that's what signing on means. Nobody asks the male soldier, nobody says, OK, you've signed on the dotted line, now, do you want to fight or not? They don't ask him. So the same should apply for women, shouldn't it? If they sign on the dotted line, then they sign the same as everybody else, and they will not be protected. They will be dispatched to the front line. We don't have front lines in the same sense, but they will be dispatched to combat areas to take part in combat matters, to fight and to kill, because that's the job, surely. I mean, do you think women should be protected? Women service personnel should be protected from the front line? I would love to know. Certainly, Angela Epstein thinks they should. Harriet Harman's not spoken on it, but she's talking about equality again. What do you think? I'd love to know. 0161 228 2255. Dennis in Saddleworth. Hiya, Dennis.
Hi, Alan, you all right?
Not bad, mate. What have you got?
Basically, just for your opinion, really. I've been having a bit of a think, which I do now and again. You know, local councillors.
Yes.
I'm from Oldham, as you probably gather. Looking back over the years, some of the decisions made by Oldham councillors, buying statues for thousands of pounds and clocks for thousands of pounds and this and that, which have never actually been put up or used or anything. Which brings me back to thinking, do these councillors that put up, do they have to disclose whether they are financially sound, whether they're capable of managing their own finances, never mind millions of public money, and things like that? You know?
You're disbarred. I'm prepared to be corrected on this, but I think one is disbarred from being a councillor. It's certainly the case for a member of Parliament. You're debarred from serving in elected public office if you are bankrupt. Now, once you're discharged from bankruptcy, I think you can again serve. But I think if you are a bankrupt, then you're not allowed to serve. Having said that, if the only criteria they've got for financial management is that you've not been made bankrupt, it's not much of a test, is it, really?
Well, that's where I'm coming from, you know.
So,
you
no,
don't know how many beans in five. I mean, blimey.
Well, the answer, I think, apart from the criteria I just explained, I don't think they are. I don't think they have to demonstrate that they are able to handle money, because as a councillor, in terms of touching the money, they don't get to.
No.
Because that's all done by the professionals, if you will, by the employees, the executive, as it's called. What councillors do is they decide on how much money to spend hither and thither. They set the budget.
That's right.
Now, in the case of Oldham or Warrington or Manchester or any of the other councils up and down the land, they will have in their budget each year a percentage of their turnover, if you like, a sum of money that is allocated to buy things like statues and other embellishments.
Things, yeah.
So it's not a case of they spend all the money they've got on social services, education, street repair and the like, and then once it's all been satisfied, if there's any left they spend it on statues. They actually divide the money up first of all. They have a budget meeting in about November when they decide how much each department, I think it's quite a lot of meetings, but they'll decide what each department will have to spend the following year.
Yeah, I think the time has come where people have got to be proving qualifications that they're capable of this office, or certainly an aptitude to do the office, or something like that. It's getting a bit daft now.
I'm not sure how you do it.
No, I'm not either.
We'll leave it to cleverer men than us, Dennis, and there's plenty of them. But I don't know how it would work. I don't know how you can say who's going to be allowed to stand for council. Someone who's got a degree. Well, I know lots of people who've got degrees who, frankly, I wouldn't let them walk past our house for fear of them doing damage.
True.
Or do you go for people? You see, being a councillor, being a politician, is as much about emotion as it is about practicality.
Yeah.
Caring for something is more important as a councillor than understanding how it works, because they employ people for that. They employ people to make that happen. What the councillors do is they say, we think we should, I mean, to use your example, we think we should have a statue of Lloyd George. And then the officers of the council, the paid officials, will say, no, councillor, you can't, because this piece of legislation says that you're not allowed to, or that the money was spent last year and was promised to something else for this year, so you can't. But they can still say, well, OK, you're going to have to overturn that decision because we want it in. And it will then be for the rest of the council to decide whether they want it or not. Now, it then depends on how much that particular council or the collective members of that council want a statue of Lloyd George.
Right. I mean, like, at the moment, there's obviously a lot of spend going on in Manchester in the future on this this tram line and all the rest of it, and the inner city charges and all the rest of it. And, you know, can't get my head around that some of these numpties are going to have to make these decisions, you know?
You can say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
Right.
Cheers, Dennis.
Yeah, OK, Alan, thanks.
Dennis seems to be saying that some of our elected officials are, and I quote, numpties. Wherever could he have got that idea from? Gary in Wigan. Hiya, Gary.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Not bad, mate. What have you got?
Good. Just about this frontline thing with women.
Yes.
I suppose I'm a bit of an old-fashioned dude, but no women, no procreation, so I think you should keep them off frontline. It might sound sexist, that, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, frankly, women can't procreate on their own. I'm sorry to break it to you, Gary. But no men, there's no procreation either.
Well,
just a passing thought, you know.
Yeah, well, I suppose if it was all men left, then I don't think there'd be any more children, so there'd be no...
Exactly, but if it was all women left, there'd be no more children, but to hear women talk, there'd be no more wars either.
Well, I don't know. What's
Neither
your
do
view,
I.
anyway?
I'm not sure. I think it comes down to, and this sounds like I'm sort of dodging the question, and I hope I'm not, but I think it comes down to, if we are to say that women are going to serve within units as opposed to being a separate unit like the WRACs, the RACs, if they're going to serve within the unit, then I'm tempted to suggest that if they've got the same qualifications as the men, they serve in the unit the same way as the men, they get paid the same as the men, then they do the same work as the men. And if that means a bullet in the chest, then tough, that's the world.
Yeah, it's you probably get loads of phone calls now about me saying this, but it's a physical fact that men are built different to women, obviously.
Yes,
I don't go into detail. And they tend to get stronger quicker. I'm not saying not all women are not strong, but, you know, it takes a lot more for a woman to get themselves physically fit, as strong, powerful, fend people off, etc., where a man's got a bit of advantage over a woman.
Well, certainly a fit man of equal stature, age and everything else to a woman, a fit woman, will be stronger. But I think it ends there. I don't think there's much more. Possibly more physically resilient, possibly, and it is only possibly, but certainly in most cases stronger. But as a serving soldier these days, sailor or airman, I don't know when your physical endurance and your physical strength is the deciding factor. I mean, this woman was blown up in a Land Rover, if I remember correctly, and quite frankly, sitting in a Land Rover is equally achievable by a man and a woman.
Yeah.
Standing behind a gun and pointing it is equally achievable by a man and a woman.
See, trying to make myself a little clearer.
Go on.
It sounds, I know there's equality and everything these days and all, Women's Institute and whatever. Anyway, a woman, don't know, you tend to have a bit of weakness. If you was on the front line with a woman, I think you'll be watching her back more than you would your mate. Do you know?
So I take the point now. Yes, that is for sure a possibility, and that is the old argument. It isn't that the women are weaker, but it's the men who at the moment are the dominant in the forces, dominant in numbers.
Well, you could say they're weaker because they're looking out for the woman because it is...
Well, I was trying to avoid the idea that either was weaker. You're not saying that women are weaker. You're saying that the man is more likely to be protective of a woman than he is his colleague.
That's right.
His male colleague.
It's in more circumstances, it's a natural thing to do. And that's where I'm coming from. It'd be a natural thing to me to try and protect that woman rather than someone who's the same stature as me, another male who can look after himself. It sounds...
I take that. I'll just put one challenge to that. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I'll put one challenge to it, and that is surely all serving soldiers, because they serve these days the way the forces work, particularly these days, in very, very, very small units. And by that I mean, in this particular vehicle there were 4 people. They work in very small units. 20 is a large force now because of firepower and all of that, and the way armies are fought. And those 20, those 4, those 10, they are closer than brothers at the moment of contact.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter the gender of them. They would protect their colleague unto their own death, whatever the gender of their colleague, wouldn't they?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't either.
If it's worth polling, but you ask anyone. Ask people.
I am asking anyone. I've just opened the lines. I'm asking anyone that cares to mention it. Good on you, Gary.
Well, just that last point. That the simple question of would you be looking out for that woman rather than a man of equal stature, whatever? And he'd probably say yeah.
We shall see. Good on you, Gary. Cheers, mate. What do you say? Women on the front line? Gary says no, not because they are less capable, not because they're anything other than it would affect the men, and the men would change their behaviour in order to offer a little, if you like, maybe even unnecessary protection for the woman. Interesting. 0161 228 2255. Lee in Liverpool says, seeing as you've started your show talking about alcoholics, you and your listeners might be interested in the survey I found while browsing the net with a colleague. I think if you hover over the link below, I'm not going through all that, go to the survey on page 1, am I an alcoholic, and answer honestly. I'm virtually teetotal, but answered at least one of them. My mate was gutted to find he's definitely an alcoholic. There you go. It's one of those. It's not a joke website, but the definition of what is an alcoholic is a very strange one indeed, because some people say if you have half a bottle of wine a day, you're an alcoholic, but only if you're absolutely have to have that half a bottle of wine. It gets very complicated when we start to measure. David says, I'm all for equality of opportunity for all kinds of groups, but if be it gender, sexual proclivity, religion, race, or whatever. But it's just occurred to me, I'm a bit slower than you, what if women gain total equality, and all it means, and the situation was such that we, heaven forfend, had to reintroduce conscription, and women had to serve on the front line. Interesting. Yes, if we said, right, we're all equal, and now we've got conscription, then women would be conscripted in exactly the same way as men. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline News.
There's confusion around whether you'll get a vote on plans for a congestion charge and improve public transport in Greater Manchester. The government wants to change the law to promote the equal treatment of all groups in society. And if you get a co-op divvy, you're in for some good news. The Manchester-based cooperative group says members will share a record payout of more than £38 million, almost double last year's windfall. Manchester's weather, mostly cloudy with some rain, highs of 17 Celsius. I'm Faye Rusco.
BBC Radio Manchester. 2020 traffic.
If you're travelling on the M60 at present, watch out, traffic's really starting to queue up now on the clockwise carriageway. Now, these vehicles that have collided, 3 lorries in fact, have now been pulled onto the hard shoulder. Recovery works currently underway at the clockwise junction 18 at Sinister Island, and delays on camera I can see as far back as junction 17 at Prestwich. The inside lane of the 3 on the main carriageway has been reopened. However, lane 1 is still closed on the entry slip from the Sinister Island roundabout, and that's so the emergency services can gain access. Now to the M6, and traffic seems to be moving well between junction 22 at Newton Le Willows all the way down to junction 17 at Sandbach. No major problems there. If you are using the A6 through Manchester at the moment though, London Road, watch out, sewer works continue between Whitworth Street and Ducey Street, causing some slight delays. Better news on Great Ancoat Street, traffic's now returned to normal. The road has been completely reopened to traffic again, and it's moving at a much better speed between Port Street and Laystall Street. Any further information you have for us though on the traffic situation where you are, call in hands free on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester. Sports with Steve Wild.
Hello, good afternoon to you. Manchester City are understood to have entered the race to sign Peter Crouch, according to reports on Merseyside. However, the Blues wouldn't be prepared to pay the £15 million Liverpool want for their England striker and are yet to table an official bid. Portsmouth have already had a £9 million offer for Crouch turned down by Liverpool. Now, UEFA could be faced with compensation claims from broadcasters who lost pictures of last night's Euro 2008 semi-final between Germany and Turkey. An electrical storm in Vienna severely affected the transmission. The BBC was one of the broadcasters affected, losing the pictures on 3 occasions, and they are expected to lodge an official complaint. Tonight, Spain face Russia for the right to play Germany in the final. The Germans beat Turkey 3-2 last night, much to the dismay of Turkey's former Bury striker Colin Kazim-Richards.
Especially in the first 45 minutes, I think we was by far on top. They had 1 shot in the first half, which they scored, you know. We had, I think it was 9 shots on target and more shots off target. Like I said, that was the best game we'd played, and we ended up losing. But, you know, we gave it all, and it's a shame the way they scored the last goal. I'm absolutely devastated.
He incensed New Zealand in the 4th one-dayer, and now Paul Collingwood is also facing a ban from international cricket. First there was the furore over the controversial run-out of Grant Elliott, and now Collingwood could be banned for a slow over rate in yesterday's defeat. Here's our cricket correspondent, Jonathan Agnew.
Collingwood's problem is that this is the second time in a year England have fallen so far behind with their over rate, and as captain he carries the can. But the timing couldn't be worse for him personally. Putting aside yesterday's argument about the spirit of the game, in which he made a serious error of judgment, he now faces the real prospect of missing not only the final match in the series at Lord's on Saturday, but more importantly, the first test against South Africa on Thursday week. This will all be subject to appeal, but could mean that Kevin Peterson captains England for the first time on Saturday in a match they must win to level the series.
Dominic Cork has hit out at the scrutiny Andrew Flintoff has found himself under since returning from injury. Bowling didn't appear to be a problem for the all-rounder as he took a wicket in the win over Nottinghamshire. However, Flintoff again didn't make a significant contribution with the bat, although Cork doesn't see why so much has been made of his lack of runs.
It's just absolute nonsense. I'm actually sick of hearing it now that, you know, he's struggling. He's a guy who's not had a lot of cricket, and I'd like to see, you know, any cricketer go in to face county cricketers and just go go in there and smack it, you know. I wish people would just stop worrying about, you know, how many runs he's getting. When Andrew will get runs, he'll get runs. He's a superb all-rounder, and when that time comes, somebody will feel the brunt of it.
3 Britons are on the show courts this afternoon at Wimbledon. Anne Keathavong opens centre court proceedings against Venus Williams, followed by Andy Murray against Xavier Malise. Third up on court number 1 is Chris Eaton against Dmitry Tursunov. And on tonight's Rugby League Hour with Jack and Trevor, they'll be looking into life outside Super League with their studio guests, Oldham's Chris Hamilton, Swinton coach Paul Kidd and Karen Reynolds from the Rochdale Hornets. That's all between 7 and 8.
New drama on BBC One.
When I woke up, she was dead.
Yeah, but it's still strong.
Then charge him.
This is the most open and shut case that I've handled in a very long time. Nobody's going to stop wanting to kill you just because you say you're innocent.
The stupid and the weak, they're not surviving here.
Pretty sure you're going to remember things the way I'm telling it.
I want to tell the truth.
The truth can go to hell.
I just want you all to listen.
From a lost night of passion to a living nightmare, this is Criminal Justice. Starting Monday night at 9 on BBC One.
Yeah, but will they have anonymous witnesses? Ah, yes, you see. Well, we will have soon. We've had them, and then we're not having them, and then we'll have them again if Straw gets his way. Jack Straw, the Home Secretary, has presented his thoughts to Parliament. Not a long job, as you know. But sorry, Jack. I know Jack as well. Mr. Straw said the urgent bill, which he hoped would be published next week, would set out that a judge will have to be satisfied that the need for anonymity is satisfied, that a fair trial will be possible, and that it is in the interests of justice. I can see the flaw already. The flaw is that if it's left to the judge to decide whether a witness can or cannot testify anonymously, that means witnesses won't come forward because they will already be known by time they get to the place where that decision will be made. We shall see. Chris in Hayfield. Hiya, Chris.
Hello, Alan.
What have you got?
Women on the front line.
Go on.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
Why?
We'd lose the war.
How?
Any ground war that we took part in with women on the front line, we've got every chance of losing, and we've got women fighting.
Why?
They don't have the speed, they don't have the stamina, they don't have the quickness of reactions, and they cannot stand physical stress like a man can. It's purely a physical thing. I've got nothing against women taking intellectual roles in the forces, but when it comes to fighting, we need men on the front line, not women.
Speed? I don't know how often speed is the deciding factor, and by that I presume you mean the speed a human moves across the ground, because quite a lot of fighting these days is done in vehicles, so they don't go any slower, whoever's driving. The physical resilience, again, I'd challenge it. I think women can endure as much as men. I agree with you that a woman... I'm talking about equal people here. A woman would not be able to lift as much as a man, so she wouldn't be as strong. But a woman is as able to bear pain, endure exasperation, endure physical sapping of energy for just as long as a man. There is no difference.
There's a lot of difference.
I don't see the evidence.
And there is, because it's not just about... when I say speed, I'm not just talking about covering the ground. I'm talking about the ability to get a weapon off your shoulder, load it up, fire it, and to be able to carry that weapon for long distances, plus the other equipment they're required to carry. Speed is essential in war, and women don't have the speed of men, and that can be the difference between us winning a war and losing a war. I think it's ridiculous, Alan. I don't think it should be allowed.
All right, good on you. Thank you very much indeed. Chris, dead set against, he says, and I paraphrase him, and he doesn't mean this in any derogatory way, but women are just not fast enough or strong enough to be on the front line, and if we had them regularly on the front line as part of the business, then we would lose the battle. Julie in Manchester says, women on the front line, may we be allowed the privilege of making our own mind up about whether we want to take on board this responsibility, please? We are not children. And if we say it is more tragic when a mother dies on the front line, are we therefore saying that fathers are not as important? The idea of women on the front line affects men's concentration is pretty much saying that it's women's fault that men find them attractive. Perhaps we should wrap all women head to toe in fabric so they'll stop putting us off. Well, there are a group of people that do wrap women, or have women, force women to wrap from head to toe in fabric. The idea that you be allowed to choose for yourself, I understand that, but given that the world at the moment has a point of view, our bit of the world, the United Kingdom forces, has a bit of a view that women should not be involved in front-line aggressive activities, then it's a matter of the forces changing its mind. It's not a matter for women to make their own minds up. Either they're allowed on the front line or not. Women should be involved in that, but a woman, if we're going to have equality on the front line, then a woman should know when she signs on the line and takes the Queen's day's pay, the Queen's shilling as it used to be called, that she will be expected to fight in exactly the same way as a man. You go on to the equal pay argument, Julie. All women want is to receive a just amount pay for the work they do. What currently happens in many parts of the workplace is that for the same amount of work, they are paid less than their male counterparts. The generally unsupportive response to this new legislation really reveals the fact that many men do not seem to want a fair playing field. Why are men objecting to fairness? Women only want fairness, not special perks. If men hadn't perpetuated their boys' club mentality in the first place, we wouldn't have had to introduce this positive discrimination now. Men are reaping their consequences of their sexism. The consequences will be a fairer and more just society. Do men not want this? Julie in Manchester, thank you very much. If you want to join us, you can. You know how easy it is. Walter in Romilly. Hi, Walter.
Hello, Alan. Good day.
Good day to you, sir.
And, yes, you know, years ago, going back to this women on active service,
yeah.
Traditionally, I mean, in the Napoleonic Wars and the American War of Independence, there were camp followers with the armies who used to do the mundane tasks, you know, the laundry and preparing meals and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, we've moved on since then, and like you said, there were the racks and what have you, but I find it unacceptable, like Gary and one or two more people who've been on, that to me it's a moral issue that women, I find it obnoxious almost that a woman should be in the front line on active service with able-bodied men. I just feel that it's morally wrong. And then
can you work out in your mind? I mean, I understand sometimes that we individuals, we hold a position and we can't quite put our finger on the reasons. Is there any chance of you finding your reason for finding it obnoxious?
No, it's just that, I mean, I was always brought up to respect women, you know, through my mother and on various people, and I just don't accept it. I can't give perhaps a definitive answer, but I mean, where do you stop? You know, where do we stop? Would you accept that if Warrington Rugby Club signed a lady scrum half to appear on Saturday?
Yeah, if she was good enough.
Oh, come on.
No, I wouldn't have any. No, I'm sorry, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have any difficulty at all. In fact, I can think of a few women I've played against who'd get into Warrington right now the way they're playing. But honestly, I would have no problem with it at all. Now, okay, if
well, personally, I mean, I can't agree with you. I can't accept your philosophy, and so I'll just say, you know, we agree to disagree. I just can't accept
well,
it.
yeah, I mean, we frequently, I spend my life agreeing to disagree with people all the time, but I'm also I'm probably not available to be convinced, but I'd love to hear a cogent argument. Now, I'm not accusing you of anything, Walter, but you're not giving me a cogent argument. There's no reason why you should. We often, as I say, hold positions out of emotion rather than cogency. But
I mean, the lady's going through with the ball to try and get a try, and two great hulking blokes, 6 foot, 14.5 stone, pound into her and bring her down it just beggars belief to me.
Okay.
It just does. I mean, that's the way I feel.
All right, mate. Good on you. Feelings are enough for me.
Okay.
Have a good day. 0161 228 2255. Chris via text. How about women in the fire service? Could they carry you out of a burning building? I don't think so. Well, it depends how fat you are, Chris. I think many of the women... You see, again, carrying another human being isn't only a matter of strength. To a large extent, it's a matter of technique. And technique is taught. And frankly, if I was in a burning building and a woman came in full uniform and with her hose pipe and all the rest of it, I wouldn't sit there and say, no, lass, it's a man's job. I'd be happy to be carried out by a woman. In fact, possibly even happier. I'm sorry, I don't know what the problem is here. I don't understand why people think women should be protected from doing things that are a bit hard, really. Brian says, Alan, regarding Harriet Harman and her latest proposal concerning equality, she's merely prompting her feminist agenda by wrapping it in a wider cloak of equal opportunities. For many, many years, she's banged on about women's rights. Now, I've no problem with that, Alan, but what she's doing now is using her position as deputy leader of the Labour Party to promote her very personal agenda, and dare I say it, a very personal anti-male prejudices. Brian, she's the Equality Minister. She is also, I'll grant you, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, but she is the Minister for Equality. And she's promoting a bill, indeed launching a bill, that promotes equality. That's what she's paid for. She's actually doing her job. Now, you might want to argue against her objectives, but those objectives are actually her job. Derek in Oldham. Hiya, Derek.
Hiya.
What have you got?
It's my granddaughter. She's been taught with all now for the last 2 years in learning to be in the forces.
Yeah.
Now, she's been running up mountains, through rivers, carrying logs, just the same as lads. She's been camping out in winter. Her shoelaces were that frozen in February, she couldn't tie them. And they're talking about equal equality. She's a tough little girl, I'll tell you.
Quite right, too.
You know.
And what force does she want to join?
She wants to win the RAF.
Yeah, well, they won't much running there. They go by plane. They just sit there and aim it, for God's sake, man.
She wants to win military police in the RAF.
Well, yeah, there's a bit of running around there, yeah.
Or in the Navy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the instructors, what they have at Otwood Hall, I mean, you've got Staff Moyle, he's a disabled man, I think he was in the paramedics, and they're frightened to death of him.
Quite right, too.
You know.
That's how it should be. Doesn't work if you aren't scared of them.
No, they're very good, train them. They're all military people.
But Derek, I mean, it's an emotional question now. It's your granddaughter.
Yeah.
How would you feel if she succeeded in joining one of the forces, and the next thing you know, she's under fire?
Well, I think she's going in for being a PTI.
Well, they go too.
You know, but
But that moves us on, not much. We're still back with this. If they change the rules and say, because they say in the forces, all the forces, you're a sailor first, you're an airman first, you're a soldier first, your trade. That becomes irrelevant when the time comes to pick up a gun. That's the rules. You'll remember those. So do I. How would you feel if she was under fire?
Well, I don't think I'd bother. She'll have been trained for it, won't she?
That's the way. I don't know that we're ever trained for under fire, but I know your point, Derek. Good to talk to you, mate.
Thank you.
0161 228 2255. What have you got to say today? Should women serve on the front line? Why not? They wear the beret.
Tomorrow on the breakfast menu,
Paul Heaton, formerly of Beautiful South.
and Simon Rimmer on Beautiful Spuds.
Eamon and Diane tomorrow from 6.
Well, so far, everyone who's called, apart from Derek, says that yes, they should. They all agree with Angela Epstein in the Manchester Evening News, rather than with me. Well done, Angela, you win. 0161 228 2255.
95.1 FM.
DAB Digital Radio.
And the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock.
People must learn that it's not just a joke, and they must realise that there are potentially serious consequences.
A man's jailed in Manchester after pointing a laser at a police helicopter, and the battle of the sexes continues in the Commons.
3 Brits raring to go at Wimbledon.
Well, the rain will continue through this afternoon, and we are going to see 1 or 2 heavy bursts, particularly as you're driving home around tea time. Top temperatures today, 17 Celsius.
And traffic still queuing on the M60 clockwise at junction 18 Sinister Island. Congestion all the way back to 17 Prestwich. All lanes have been reopened on the main carriageway, but traffic's still heavy.
Good afternoon, I'm Faye Rusco. A man from Stockport's been jailed for 4 years after pointing a laser from his bedroom window at the Greater Manchester Police helicopter. 21-year-old Dean Bottomley from Heaton Norris pleaded guilty to endangering an aircraft. Today, Manchester Crown Court heard he bought the pen over the internet and pointed it at the aircraft to see how far it could reach. Captain Mike Briggs, GMP's chief pilot, says it could have been disastrous.
A laser being directed into the helicopter cockpit is at least a distraction to the pilots, and that could be potentially dangerous. It could render the pilots unable to read the instruments clearly, or even ultimately lose control of the helicopter, with obviously catastrophic consequences.
People power could be the key to a final decision over the congestion charge.
Provided it's done borough by borough, I'm quite in favour of it. In fact, I welcome it. If the people of Bury said yes to the tip and congestion charges, we would then go to AGMA and agree that the people of Bury has changed the opinion of the council, and the council will be 100% behind what the people say.
That's Bob Bibby, the leader of Bury Council. He's reacting to the suggestion that the idea of improved public transport and a congestion charge could be put to the public vote. The leader of Manchester City Council, Richard Leese, said he'd support a referendum on the change, but only if it was a Greater Manchester-wide result. Susan Williams is leader of Trafford Council, who opposed the charge. She says she'd also support a referendum.
I'm not usually a fan of referenda at all, because I think people should be elected to govern, but in this instance it's something that's going to affect so many people that I think it probably is a good idea before some of the politicians who are so wedded to the idea proceed with what they're doing.
The family of a British man convicted of murdering his wife and baby daughter in the United States are still insisting he's innocent. Neil Entwistle faces life in prison for the shooting in Massachusetts 2 years ago. His family claim his wife killed their daughter and then committed suicide. Congleton's Tory MP Anne Winterton has attacked government plans to allow firms to discriminate in favour of female and ethnic minority job candidates. But speaking in the Commons, Mrs Winterton said it will be bad news for small businesses.
What she proposes will be an extremely harsh burden for smaller business, which is the sector, in spite of what she said, because of the amount of red tape and bureaucracy with which they have to deal already. This will be a further blow.
If you get a co-op divvy, you're in for some good news. The Manchester-based cooperative group says members will share a record payout of more than £38 million, almost double last year's windfall. But don't go buying a new car just yet. The money's being split between the co-op's 2.5 million members. Meanwhile, the group's overall profits are up 35% to more than £320 million.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Ian Cheeseman.
Manchester City have apparently renewed their interest in Liverpool's Peter Crouch. That's according to reports on Merseyside. They suggest the Blues wouldn't be prepared to pay the £15 million Liverpool want for the England striker, and are yet to table a bid. UEFA could be faced with compensation claims from broadcasters who lost pictures of last night's Euro 2008 semi-final between Germany and Turkey. An electrical storm in Vienna severely affected the transmission. The BBC was one of the broadcasters affected, losing the pictures on 3 occasions, and are expected to lodge
lodge an official complaint. And Dominic Cork has hit out at the scrutiny Andy Flintoff has found himself under since returning from injury. Bowling didn't appear to be a problem for the all-rounder as he took a wicket in the win over Nottinghamshire, but Flintoff again didn't make a significant contribution with the bat. And it's a big afternoon for the three British players in second-round action at Wimbledon. Anne Keothawong, Andy Murray and Chris Eaton are all on the show courts.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, the rain and the cloud that's been around this morning is going to stick with us through the afternoon, and that rain could become heavier for a time. It's not out of the question that we could hear a rumble of thunder, and we are going to get one or two heavy bursts, particularly as you're driving home around tea time. Top temperatures today getting to 17 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Hiya, 1:05, 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk and 07786 206 951 to text. Kerry in Failsworth. Hiya, Kerry. Hello, Kerry. Oh, we've not got a Kerry. Ah, well, it would have been Kerry Gold if she'd have been there. Kerry Gold. See, you get it. Never mind. We'll get Kerry. We'll sort it out. Don't you worry. Dave says, just tell the woman next to you in the front line trench that you overheard one of the enemy say she had a backside big enough to hide a battalion behind, then sit back while she wipes out the enemy single-handed. Oh, dear. I shouldn't have been a party to that, but it was marginally humorous. Leslie in Prestwich. Hiya, Leslie.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
I'm very well.
Good. I'm just ringing in to say that this equality business, from a perspective of having served in the army for 22 years, although I never actually thought I would do all that when I signed on, I joined at a time when there wasn't equality in 1975 and went through the transitional period of more equality being introduced, and finally left in 1997. And as I was just saying to one of your colleagues there, I think it's horses for courses. You know, I came across a lot of men who wouldn't have been able to pick up another man. So, you know, there are quite a few male people that aren't built as strong as some women and vice versa. So I think, yeah, it's all about personal choice. And, you know, you can limit the possibility of whether you're going to go frontline depending on what cap badge you join.
Well, that's for sure. Except, of course, in the end, you're all soldiers, really.
Yeah,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean? I know about the realities of it, but if you're a medic, there's every chance you'll be on the front line.
Absolutely, and a bandsman has to be a medic in time of war.
Absolutely, and then you've got all the catering corps. They could be out on the front line, not with a gun in their hand, but close enough to get shot.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there are women there who are perfectly willing and able to make the choice, you know, as you said before, sign on the dotted line, and if those rules and regulations come in that everybody is equal and you know, nobody, you know, is not forced to go and do whatever they've got to do.
Well, indeed, in these days, actually today, would you believe today is the birthday or the anniversary of the first conscript in the first national serviceman in 1939. His number was 100. Oh, I can never read all them O's. What was it? 10001, I think it is.
Right.
What, 2, 4, yeah, 10001.
I used to listen to the argument of some of my male colleagues who at the time used to say, no, it would be terrible if women were allowed on the front line because that chivalry would always kick in, and if a woman beside them fighting was injured, they would always think of her first rather than going forward. Well, I don't necessarily buy that, because listening to some of the young men who were getting awarded by the Queen yesterday for bravery had said before they went into battle to their mates, they'd made a promise to each other that if one of them got hit, that they would get their body out, dead or alive. You know, so
it's the modern way, isn't it? It's the modern way. I mean, the Americans have had that idea for donkey's years. We never leave anyone behind.
Absolutely.
The British, of course, we left them at the Falklands. We leave them all over the place. We're slightly different.
That was my male colleague's argument at the time, that if a woman beside them got injured, they would be more worried about getting her out than thinking about themselves and going forward and doing what they were supposed to be doing.
What about the signature, as it were? When you sign on the line, because you've done it as a female, what's said? I mean, I appreciate it was a long time ago, Leslie, but what's said? I mean, you know the terms you joined under.
Yeah, well, the oath of allegiance is exactly the same for women as it is for men. I mean, as it happens, I'm pretty much an expert on that because I finished my time in a recruiting office, so I can say with absolute certainty that the oath of allegiance taken by both men and women is exactly the same.
I'm intrigued that you're in the recruiting office because the conversations that you have with women when you're trying to recruit them,
yeah.
And I know they all walk in of their own volition. We're not out there shanghaiing them anymore.
No.
They walk off the street with their own volition.
Absolutely.
But the conversations with women and men, are they the same?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's no distinction. You know, I recruited men, I recruited women. I spoke to them frankly about the experiences that I'd had. And, you know, what they could look forward to. And, you know, bottom line is that you're signing up to an organisation which, when the chips are down, you've got to roll your sleeves up and get on with that function. Of course, when the chips aren't down, there's a lot of niceties to be had as well, and there's a lot of good education that people can get in all the forces, I think, for those people that missed out in school. So it can provide some really good opportunities for some people to get out of, you know, perhaps not such nice situations that they may have grown up in or whatever. And I think in that way, the forces is a good grounding for everybody.
You've turned back into the recruiting sergeant.
Sorry.
Now we're having none of that. What's going on here? Are you still getting a bob every time you flog one in?
No, I've been out for 10 years now, and I was listening to.
I now am absolutely convinced of it. You can take the woman out the army, but you can't take the army out the woman. You're still at it, woman. Leslie, a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Alan.
Have a good day. Bye now. 0161228 2255. Kerry in Failsworth. Hiya, Kerry.
How you doing, Alan? You all right?
I'm very well.
Listen to the previous lady that's just been on. She's pretty much said it all, really. I serve in the Territorial Army, and I'm in the REME. So that's a predominantly male cat badge anyway.
It's building bridges and mending trucks.
Yeah, I'm a vehicle mechanic, so we're attached to an engineer regiment.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at going over to Afghanistan in November. And listening to all the previous quite chauvinistic male outlook, I think, like the lady said, it's changing now. I mean, it was looked upon years back, and the old school kind of guys that were in the army way back like in the Second World War kind of days, and not long after, round about the time you yourself. I mean, that's when it was like that in them days, and it was brought up to you respect women, and, you know, the chivalry side kicks in, and would, you know, if you saw a woman on the front line, say for instance, and there was something happening, they'd forsake their own safety and go for a woman, which it needs to be changing now. I mean, you know, we're forward thinking. You've got, like that lady said, you know, the young lads on the front line now, the more forward thinking, the more, to use a buzzword, metrosexual now, and I think that's the way it's going. And we need to be, everyone, it's, you know, would you stop a black guy from being on the front line because he's black? Would you stop a soldier being on the line because she's female? It's a discriminatory thing that needs, you know, what year are we in? It's 2008 now.
There's a slight difference. I mean, I do accept there is a simile in the discrimination element, whether you discriminate against black people, tall people, short people, fat people, thin people, women. There's no one sensible would argue that a black guy is less capable than a white guy. But there are people that do argue that a woman is less capable than a man. And to be honest, if we look at sport, they are. I mean, the England women's team would lose against the England men's. The England women's rugby team would lose against the men's. In the running a marathon, the woman would not beat the man. Do you know what I mean? So there are differences that have to be acknowledged, at least.
Well, is that not just because the way things are at the moment, we've got the Premier League, I think football, rugby and such, is that not, we're not working from like draconian times when it was an all-male team, we have all-female, so they are in different leagues because they've not been coached in the same way.
But that doesn't apply to running. And the speed, I mean, I think I'm right in saying that the speed for the 100 metres and indeed the marathon is faster for the best man than it is for the best woman.
Totally agree. However, whether it's sport, a sporting team, a sporting event, if it's the army, if it's the police, if it's any, usually most places where physical ability is there's an aptitude and a selection process. And obviously there's a bar set. And I think if anybody can meet the requirements, whether it be male, female or whatever, then I think what's the problem? As long as that person can prove himself, male or female, and like, as I say, the previous lady said, as long as they've got you know, they're able-bodied and able-minded, and they want to do it. I don't see what the problem is.
And
I think too big a deal's made about it, to be honest with you. If people can make the grade, let them in, no matter what they are.
And what about you off to Afghanistan in November? You're putting yourself in a very dangerous place.
Well, and that's my choice. I feel like it's something that's niggling away at the back of my mind, and I could quite easily find a reason not to go. But there's just something in the back of my mind. I feel that I just need to get it out of my system. I'm an adult, you know. I'm 32 now. I've done quite a few bits and bobs, not by any means worldly-wise, by a long shot. But I feel like it's something I need to do, and I don't want to look back in years to come and wonder what if. Obviously, even my parents now, they're not too happy with the fact that the prospect of me going over there. But
Kerry, I mean, women and men put themselves in dangerous positions all the time, but in many of those dangerous positions, you're actually, if you like, pitting yourself against the environment, against the world, against each other. But in Afghanistan, as we've seen just recently, and the same in Iraq, you're actually pitting yourself against the odds. You can do nothing to prevent, I'm sorry to put it so bluntly, but you can do nothing to prevent yourself getting blown to bits by a roadside bomb. You can't avoid that. That if one goes off, you'll get it.
Yeah. Well, so there's any other soldier that's over there at the moment, and it's that they're the fancies, and that's the challenge you take on, and it's something you want to do.
Well, I promise you, Kerry, if I had a bloke on, I'd ask him exactly the same question.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe. Cheers.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
0161 228 2255. Daniel in Stockport with you in a mo.
Your Sunday Morning Lion with Mike Shaft.
Where are we at the moment as a nation?
We do need to know a lot more about getting representation from all diverse groups. But until people begin to realise that diversity is about all of us, rather than us and them, it will always be a, quote, minority issue.
Mike Shaft.
What is it all about?
Well, Micah Challenge is a long-term commitment of the Christian community worldwide, really, to hold governments to account to deliver on the Millennium Development Goals, so that it's not just a series of aid promises.
Manchester's faith, spirit, and life's difficult questions with Mike Shaft.
What is it?
Sunday morning from 7 on BBC Radio Manchester.
Daniel in Stockport, hiya.
Hi, all right.
Not bad. What have you got, mate?
Well, basically, with regards to it was just done, let's say anyone who wants to go, who volunteers to go to Afghanistan and get himself blown up's an idiot anyway. They know the war's on, so why join the army?
Well, that might be why they join the army. They might want to pit themselves against grave difficulty.
Well, I will more fool them if they want to die doing it. Another thing, yeah, so it's not what I wanted to say, but just because of what was based on the last caller. But another thing is, all these parents who moan that the kids die when they're in Afghanistan and stuff like that. I mean, how many of them joined the army since it all started over there? They knew full well it was going on. They shouldn't have let them join. Well, you can't. I mean, yeah, they shouldn't have let them join, and if they felt that way, they should have talked them out of it. But you can't stop them joining. My mother went absolutely berserk when I said I'd signed on. She went balmy. There's nothing you can do. You're a grown-up. You make your decisions. Yeah, there's nothing they can do, and it's just that these people who blame Tony Blair and stuff like that. If the kids don't like it, then they don't join. But with this equal opportunities thing, what I wanted to say is, are men going to get equal rights in the workplace as women, such as paternity, stuff like that? I mean, how long do women get off the maternity rights?
There is a very realistic difference there, and that is that the woman has to be the one that actually has the kid.
Yeah.
You can't really get round that. It's a bit of a beggar, but you can't. I mean, bloke's involvement's 3 minutes. The woman's got 9 months of it.
Right, yeah, I understand what you're saying in that respect, but when we're talking about men and women doing the same work, when the women are getting months off work, they're obviously not doing the same work, are they?
All right, good on you. It's a good point, Daniel. Thank you very much indeed. Women get months and months off for having a baby, and the bloke gets nout. Absolutely not. Now, OK, I take the point that she drops the kid and all he does is have a bit of a rummage around for a quarter of an hour and sweet nothings and all that rubbish. So I do understand the difference. In fact, rather like it. Anyway, whilst acknowledging the difference, yes, but you still end up in the place, don't you, where the woman OK, she stops work, she comes back 6 months later and carries on, but the bloke's worked all the way through that. So who's carrying who? It's a good question. Peter, Allan, wasn't it a disaster for football fans when the television broadcast was halted by an electrical storm? They would have had to think, what do we do now? It's having to think there is the disaster, not the losing the picture. What could he mean? Hi, Allan. Are all the men ringing you today mad? Do they all think that while they're cooking the men's dinner or tending to their injuries that they wouldn't get blown up like the blokes if a bomb was dropped on a base camp? Steph in Old Trafford and Gary in Heald Green. I worked with a woman at Manchester Airport. It was quite a physical job. She was bloody useless. I had to do a lot of her work for her, or it wouldn't have got done. She should have been giving me half her wages, but when she was on her monthly moment, she was a lunatic. They were all terrified of her. Yeah, thanks, Gary. So she was just a lunatic once a month. And there was you being one for the rest of the time. The only lines women should work on are washing lines. That's Russ from Lee. Such a pleasant bunch.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline news.
A man from Stockport's been jailed for 4 years after pointing a laser from his bedroom window at the Greater Manchester Police helicopter. The family of a British man convicted of murdering his wife and baby daughter in the US are still insisting he's innocent. And Congleton's Tory MP Anne Winterton has attacked government plans to allow firms to discriminate in favour of female and ethnic minority job candidates. Manchester's weather cloudy with rain, but it should get brighter later. Highs of 17 Celsius. I'm Faye Rusco.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Well, thankfully, traffic's back to normal once again on the M60 clockwise at junction 18 at Sinister Island. 3 vehicles collided earlier on this afternoon around that area, but thankfully all lorries have now been cleared from the carriageway. They've been recovered and all lanes reopened to traffic. Taking a look to the A6 London Road in the centre of Manchester. Don't forget it's still closed between Whitworth Street and Ducey Street. The diversion's signed locally for you. Don't forget, though, it's a main route in and out of the city centre used by a number of bus services, so make sure you check before you travel. Don't forget, if you can update me further, get in touch by dialing hands-free 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Beggs.
BBC Radio Manchester.
With 2020 traffic through until midnight.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Back to the line. Charlotte in Cheshire. Hi, Charlotte.
Yes, hello, Alan.
Hello. What can we do for you?
Right, well, I feel very strongly about this, about women, going into the army.
Yeah.
For one, obviously, women are to bear children, and if they've got, monthly planes to be dealing with while they're in the army and they're in combat, they're going to have to take special precautions so that they haven't got to deal with that, as well as possibly getting a bullet in some part of their body where they'll be hemorrhaging. Now, we all know what's going on with the Taliban out there. I mean, my father, when he was alive, he had a very large security business, and he procured a lot of business through the MOD via the Crown agents for this country before Thatcher got in and changed things, because she wanted to do everything her way. And what I can't understand is we've got the echelons of power out there with the Afghanistan army, and we've got the echelons of power with our MOD, and they all need to negotiate at the highest level at dealing with the illegal pharmaceutical industry and the legal pharmaceutical industry, which both are gaining a lot of money from using our men and our women in the armed forces to police this crazy situation. And all I can see is a lot of young people, unfortunately, who have been very damaged on either side of the Taliban and the British armed forces, ending up having psychiatric treatment, which could have been prevented if only from the very top level they had discussed how they were going to share the pharmaceutical industry and it correctly to a very high standard. Now, we all know heroin is very crucial in the hospitals, and we all know that it's used for operations, it's used for pain relief, and it's been going on for centuries, that it's been used as a very crucial medical painkiller, which we can't do without in this world. Now, if you go back to the 1970s, right, and if you look up in some of these books, what will tell you all about the business with the drug dealers in this country, that the government at the time decided that people were not allowed to have a powerful painkiller on prescription. And 1970 and 1971, they made it that the Home Office had details of who was on this medication and who was told they're no longer allowed to have it. And you've got to remember, there was people by the First and Second World War who still needed very powerful painkillers to cope with what had happened in their combat days and to emotional pain from all those disgusting times in the trenches and disgusting tours of duty. Now, everybody knows that, you know, this is cultivated, this poppy, and it's crucial to everybody in the world. So why don't they sort themselves out? I'm not having a go at the Taliban. I'm not having a go at the government in our country. I just want them to realise they've got something so precious, what's grown, and if it's monitored properly, that our armed forces wouldn't be in this crazy situation in that very, very small part of the country, which is a very long way from
Charlotte,
here.
you make some very sound points, and yes, an awful lot of what's going on in Afghanistan is about poppy growing and the like.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And the Americans and the British military are very much involved in attempting. We learned only yesterday that the Taliban earns something like £100 million a year, which is an awful lot of money.
Yes,
£100 million a year.
But why can't the government in America as well? Because obviously the pharmaceutical industries have got a very big shareholders, which are Americans as well, and I can well understand they're taking care of their business. But why can't...
Well, they're not really, because the pharmaceutical industry would prefer, because they would then have, as an industry, a monopoly, would prefer to have all the crop, or at least... But the problem is that the farmers... They've tried growing other products, and I've even read somewhere recently, I don't know how true it is, but I've read somewhere that some poppy farmers are now actually ploughing up their poppy farms and planting wheat, because wheat is so expensive on the world market.
That's right.
But in the main, their most profitable product, or their most profitable crop, is heroin, the poppy.
That's correct.
And that is then sold, some of it legally, as you rightly say, but an overwhelming majority of it is sold illegally. And the Americans and the British and others are doing their utmost to control it, but unfortunately it's a huge, complicated country.
It is. Yeah, well, we all know. You can go around the streets of Manchester where you might find a smackhead his life's totally escalated out of control, and he's looking to buy a bag of brown for a tenner. And we all know that, you know, that's a going situation, unfortunately, with the way, you know,
what I'm intrigued, Charlotte, I mean, we know about drug addiction, we know how we get there. What I'm intrigued by, and I don't know whether you have this answer, it's unfair to ask you, but do you have any suggestions of what the government
should do?
What this government, our government, or the American government should do in Afghanistan to control the crop?
Yes, I realise they must have meetings.
But do you think there's something that could be done that's not been done?
I have some ideas, but I don't know if anyone's prepared to listen.
Well, I will to one of them, because we don't have time for more, but I'll listen to the principal. What's the one big idea?
What I want to do is I want them to go right back to 1970, see where the situation, if you can look that far back with all the different governments, see how the situation got so out of control in this country.
But Charlotte,
work with these other Muslim people.
With due respect,
Charlotte, out what's going
with due respect, you seem to be saying, if I had this problem, I wouldn't start from here. We're where we are.
You've got to go right back. You've got to go right back. And
well, if we're going back, if we're going to go back,
all them years ago,
if we're going to go back, let's go back to the Opium Wars that are only 200 years ago.
Yeah.
But really, I'm asking you not to give me a history lesson, which I can get for myself. What I want to know, when they've gone back and they've looked at 1970 and possibly even gone back to the Opium Wars and looked there, they then have to make a decision what action to take. What piece of action, what action do you think they should take?
Well, I should imagine it's not too difficult for both sides of, this country, Afghanistan, to be able to monitor more as to how much they have, right? To because I can't imagine they have the local chemist on the corner of these terrible worn-torn areas where people have got the money to go in and pay for a prescription. I don't think, because
well, I'm sorry, Charlotte.
Over the decades,
the thousands and thousands of tons of heroin that's coming out of these countries isn't coming out via the local chemist. I assure you.
We know it isn't.
My simple question is, simple question, and we'll have to end it once I've got semblance of an answer. The simple question is, do you think there is one particular thing our government, let's ignore the Yanks, our government could do in Afghanistan to diminish the heroin trade? That's it. That's the question.
No, I don't think you can diminish it because, for one, it's a crucial painkiller.
Well, I didn't say remove it. I said diminish. In other words, reduce it.
Reduce it, right.
That's what diminish means. Sorry, go on.
Well, I think there's a lot of very intelligent men out there.
Yeah, I'm asking a very intelligent woman, I hope.
It's a difficult answer, and it can't be just solved in a few minutes.
I think that's the best thing you've said.
There's got to be room for negotiation.
All right, I accept that.
The trouble is,
Charlotte, we're going to end it there. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. There's room for negotiation. We don't have an answer. There are some very clever people who might find one eventually. Mark in Widnes.
Hello, Alan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's about the women serving in the army.
Go on.
I served in the army, and luckily I served in an infantry regiment, and they're not allowed to serve there. But my issue is, as a father of 4 daughters, where do we end it, Alan? Women join the army by their own volition at the moment, and then come down the line, we go to a general war. Every man over the age of 18 who's fit gets called up to fight. We know that. Do we then start calling up our daughters?
Well, why not? Why not?
Well, do you not think we measure ourselves as a society by the way we treat our women?
Well, yes, and one of the ways we do that is by, instead of treating them as if we own them, treating them as if they're equal to the men.
Well, they are, but they're equal in their own ways. They're far, far superior in many things than we are. I think this is all political correctness gone mad. I only left the army 3 years ago after serving 22 years. And women, by the back door, are going on the front line. Our government, our laws of the land state that women should not serve on the front line. A good few years ago, they stopped having regimental clerks. They started getting adjutant general's corps. More and more women were coming to the battalion. When you went on operations and exercises, you didn't say to women because they can't go in the front line, so they stay behind on the rear party. Consequently, the men are doing it all. Consequently, more and more women come, and then you end up as a company sergeant major on the front line in Iraq with a female clerk in your wagon.
So what?
Well, it's not allowed. The law says they shouldn't be on the front line.
Well, okay, what we're discussing today isn't what the law says, because we all know what the law says. What we're discussing is it right that the law says that?
Yes, it is, Alan.
Now, that's what I'm asking you. Why is it right? Why is it, apart from it's against the rules, why is it unacceptable to you having a woman in a team of 4 in your office on the front line? Why is that in some way wrong?
Right. First and foremost, women have... Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Can you hear me, Alan?
I can, yes.
Yep. First and foremost, women have different needs. For example, sanitary needs. Yep. Well, you know what I mean, don't you?
I do know what you mean, and I don't think it's a major problem, but go on.
Well, it is if you're in an OP in Northern Ireland and one's holding a bag for the other fella. Do you know what I mean? This is the sort of things that go on in the front line. Men have to do the sanitary business, everything in front of each other.
So what?
Well, are we going to go down that road? Well, you go into any bar, you go into a working men's club, Alan, for a pint.
Yes.
Have 12 fellas stood at the bar. You can stand there all night, drink 8 or 10 pints, there'll be no lumber. As soon as 2 women arrive in that situation, men will start scrapping, arguing and everything, showing off. It's the natural order of things. Men and women are different, Alan.
So what you're saying is the reason we can't allow women on the front line is we can't trust the men not to try and kill one another instead of the enemy. That's what you seem to be saying.
That's just one example. Another example is they're not strong enough.
I think that's a criticism of men rather than women, to be honest.
It is, yeah, Alan, it is. Men are a strange breed.
I feel sure if you go into the Women's Institute and a bloke walks in, nobody dies.
Exactly. But what I'm saying, but my main reason is, Alan, if we went to a general war and we had general conscription, which you mentioned earlier, conscription in 39. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening.
I keep getting beeps. You're then gonna call up my daughters. And my daughters aren't.
Oh, now we've both got a beep. Mark, I'm sorry about that, mate. The beep may well have been a beep telling you that your phone was running out of juice, and the final beep was it's gone. Bill in Macclesfield. Hiya, Bill.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Right,
very well.
Yeah. Just a quick aside. I was going to talk to you about the chap who was on yesterday about the parking in Alderley Village.
Oh, yes.
But I'll do that another day if I may. I'll just, at the moment, that's this time, I'll just give a quick aside on this army business. You know what you're on about. I've got a couple of observations. I think I know you're a left-winger, and I'm not what you sound as though you might be before it, actually, and it will certainly be, in my view, the end of the army. And the difference fun.
How?
Right. Okay. I think you got one or two women killed in Iraq, by roadside bombs. You've had one killed in Afghanistan, and each time there was a tremendous furore in the press and what have you. Can you imagine if it was 50-50, for instance?
Yeah, after a fortnight, it wouldn't be news anymore.
No, it wouldn't be. It would be news, and I'll tell you for why. It's still in the mentality of the population that there is a difference. Now, there may not be in your mind, because that is the mind of a left-winger. And
thank you.
You're entitled to your views.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said, so thank you.
I don't often say that.
No, I think you were trying not to then, but
yes, I was.
That's all right then.
You're entitled to your views.
It was the idea that I thought everyone was equal, but do go on, Bill.
Well, we do oppose each other, but we can still have a laugh, because I'm a right-winger, but I'm not taking this from my point of view, because, if people say they're different today than they were 40 years ago, well, I must accept that, but I don't know whether they are, because the guy who was on before doesn't sound an old man to me, and he still had the same genes and adrenalines and such, like whatever you call them, running through his veins as what I did. Now, I think for myself that it will finish the forces, and it will also make what they call the Afghanistan, the Taliban. Fight harder, because they will be out to prove also that they're not going to be beat by a bunch of women. Now, I've got one other observation that I will make to you, and I think that if women do want to join, then they should have their own battalion, or if they can raise enough of them, and their own regiment, and fight on their own.
Well, that's how it used to be with the well, they didn't fight.
No, they didn't fight.
In the active service sense, but the Women's Royal Army Corps were there and then they were farmed out, still members of their own unit, farmed out to all the other units.
Yes, so that would be the only logical thing to me to do, because when I was a young man, I don't know whether men are still as brawny and as sexy as we were in our time, but we certainly wouldn't keep our hands off young women. And I certainly think that if I'd have been in that position, then I'd be thinking more about the girls than I would be about the enemy half the time.
All right, mate. Well,
let me say another thing. The way it's going at the moment, with all this furore, every time a soldier who joins up to be a soldier, unfortunately and sadly always gets killed, I think the time has come to start raising a foreign army. We could have 3 times as many.
Yeah.
There'd be no questions asked, and nobody would bother when they got killed, and the government will still get the job done as well.
The Gurkhas.
Something like that.
All right, it was a good idea, Bill. There was a woman I nearly named the unit then, I don't think I'm allowed to, but there's a woman in the mob I was in at one point, one of my postings, and I was late off shift and had to go and get my meal in the canteen, and so used to, when the canteen was closed, used to go in by the back door, and there was a woman there lifting a 5-gallon vat of custard, who, frankly, if you wanted to touch her up, you can go first, I promise you. because you should have ripped your arm off and hit you with a soggy end. Have a good day.
Tell you what,
Go on.
Before you go,
Go on.
just a quick aside. There's plenty around them, not them sorts around Macclesfield.
Well, there are indeed. They're all over the place, and rightly so.
One quick one before you go. The chap who came on about the 14.5 stone rugby player, he's certainly lived in the past. They're 19 stone now, plus.
They are. You're not allowed in if you're under 20. Good on you, Bill. Have a good one. 0161 228 2255. He's right about rugby players. Dear God, they're all giants now. There's not many midgets playing rugby, I'll tell you. They are big beggars. And scary too. 0161 228 2255. There's still time if you want to bash. Alan says, with regard to women on the front line, I think the main concern is the possibility of sexual assault. When the Navy people, not by their fellow military personnel, but by the enemy, when the Navy people were arrested by the Iranians for crossing their border, there was a woman in the boat. From what I remember, the news coverage during and after the event, he's got a point, during and after the event, this seemed to be a major concern for her colleagues. Well, yes, but don't you also remember that of the people that were arrested, the one that did the most squealing was a bloke, and he was squealing because the Iranians had had the audacity, torture. Where's the Geneva Convention when you need it? One of the sailors had had his iPod taken. Bloody hell, you know. Where's Hitler when you need him?
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline News. A man from Stockport's been jailed for 4 months after pointing a laser from his bedroom window at the Greater Manchester Police helicopter. The leaders of 2 Greater Manchester councils who oppose a proposed congestion charge say they'd welcome a referendum on the issue. And Congleton's MP, Anne Winterton, is attacking government plans to allow firms to discriminate in favour of female and ethnic minority job candidates. Manchester's weather cloudy with rain, but it should get brighter later. Highs of 17 Celsius. I'm Anna Dawson.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
If you're heading through Bradshaw, Church Street still closed off around the junction with Lee Gate through to King Street. There's a side diversion locally, but traffic seems to be coping fairly well on the diversion route. In the centre of Manchester, Key Street still closed off whilst water maintenance work continues this afternoon between Key Street and Water Street outside Granada Studios. The diversion takes you off via the A34 New Key Street and then back onto Water Street further down at the carriageway. Motorway is fairly quiet. Don't forget though, if you can update me further, get in touch hands-free on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports.
Good afternoon, I'm Ian Cheeseman. The first of Britain's 3 single survivors at Wimbledon, Anne Keir Thong, has made an encouraging start against Venus Williams on centre court. Having been broken in her first service game, she immediately broke back, and it's currently 2 games all in the first set, with Keir Thong having a break point against the Williams serve. I'll let you know how that goes. And Andy Murray's next up on centre, playing the 2002 semi-finalist Xavier Mallis. The court number 1 programme will end with Britain's Chris Eaton, who's the lowest ranked player in the competition. He faces the temperamental Russian Dmitry Tursunov.
He's got a lot of firepower, and I think against a guy like that, I've just got to concentrate on what I'm doing. If I can hold my serve, then, hopefully I can sneak him in a cold moment. And, when I'm holding my serve comfortably, then, I'm feeling confident out there.
So good luck to him. Meanwhile, the 1999 winner, Lindsay Davenport, has withdrawn from this year's tournament with a knee injury, the back at deuce in that match on centre court. England's one-day cricket captain, Paul Collingwood, will find out the extent of his impending international ban this afternoon. Collingwood will miss either 4 one-dayers or 2 test matches, or a combination of both, after England failed to bowl their overs within the required time in yesterday's defeat by New Zealand at the Oval. Dominic Cork has hit out at the scrutiny. Andy Flintoff has found himself under since returning from injury. Bowling didn't appear to be the problem for the all-rounder as he took a wicket in the win over Nottinghamshire. However, Flintoff again didn't make a significant contribution with the bat, although Cork doesn't see why so much has been made of his lack of runs.
Just absolute nonsense. I'm actually sick of hearing it now that, he's struggling. He's a guy who's not had a lot of cricket, and I'd like to see, any cricketer go in to face county cricketers and just go in there and smack it, I wish people would just stop worrying about, how many runs he's getting. When Andrew will get runs, he'll get runs. He's a superb all-rounder, and when that time comes, somebody will feel the brunt of it.
Turning to football, and UEFA could be faced with compensation claims from broadcasters who lost pitches in last night's Euro 2008 semi-final between Germany and Turkey. An electrical storm in Vienna severely affected the transmission. And Manchester City have apparently renewed their interest in Liverpool's Peter Crouch. That's according to reports in Merseyside. They suggest that the Blues wouldn't be prepared to pay the £15 million that Liverpool want for the England striker and are yet to table a bid. Kiel Devon, back at Wimbledon, is again on advantage on a break, and again I think she's going to miss it, is she? I'll let you know how this goes, shall I, Alan? Just stay with me. She's missed it, so there you go, it's back to juice again. So I thought I'd keep you up to date, you know what I mean?
Thank you. I can't imagine how I feel now.
Heather Stott, the best guess, and a no dull people guarantee.
When he called me and said, look, we've got this part for you and you're going to play a twisted, demented version of yourself.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you know, I get where they're coming from, and it gives me the chance to have a laugh and show that I've got a sense of humour, like you say, not sad and lonely Les and Les Miserables. It was my chance to kind of rid the world of that.
Heather Stott, the best guests, tomorrow morning from 9 on BBC Radio Manchester.
Touch and goal then when he went on the tennis day, gone. I mean, I know people love it and good luck to them, but we don't all have to have it, do we? Peter in Bury. Hiya, Peter.
Hello.
What have you got?
Well, recently I lost my brother 3 years ago, and my mum decided to rearrange her will, and she asked me would there be anything I'd like. So I said, yeah, I'd like the telegram you got in World War II saying, congratulations, girls, the first doodle bug detected coming over London. We sent up 2 Spitfires, and they destroyed it.
Oh, fabulous.
So my mum, I mean, she's still alive, she's 86 now. But I was her role as far as the RAF was concerned, women's RAF, and she served from 1939 to 1946.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
but they weren't, I mean, the whole of the United Kingdom was the front line then. The cities and the like were as likely to be, people in the cities were as likely to be killed sometimes as soldiers on the front line or airmen on bombing raids or submariners or what have you. But it still wasn't technically the front line. I know that women worked on the ACAT guns. My own auntie drove ambulances in London. She got really punished for that because she ended up married to a Yank. Can't get any worse, can it?
Not really.
But you know what I mean. So I'm aware of that. But they weren't on active service in that. They were there 24 hours a day on the front line, muck and bullets and all the rest of it.
No, they weren't. But they were there detecting it with Morse code, so the enemy could be intercepted.
Yeah.
And on a lighter note, we gave my mum a mobile phone when she was 80. And after an hour teaching her how to use it, she said, right, you'll have to show me how to do texts now. So I said, it would be much easier for me to send you a message. I sent her a message, and if you can remember, like 5-6 years ago, they used to go, you know?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
And it was Morse code.
Yes.
And so she picked up a pen and paper.
And started logging.
She went back to being 17 and started writing it down, and I said, no, Mum, and she's going, be quiet.
I'll miss it, yeah.
Be quiet,
absolutely.
Be quiet. And then after
How did she do?
She went, connecting people.
Yeah.
Why would somebody send me a message saying connecting people?
Well, she got it then.
And then I said, no. I said, you just press OK. She said, oh, does it decipher it for you? You don't have to do it then. So I said, no. I said, you just write it as normal. I mean, my mum's quite an intelligent woman at 86, but she went back to being 17 years old.
Can't help it. Once you've learned Morse code in the methods they teach you in the forces, if ever you hear it, you immediately start trying to log it. Nothing you can do. But, of course, you lose the speed, but connecting people, if I can remember this, it's da-di-da-di, da-da-da-da-di-da-di-di, da-di-da-di-da, di-di-da-di-da-da-di.
Yeah, you sound like my mobile phone.
There you are. That's connecting people in Morse code. Blue Moon, yes, quite.
When we used to go on holiday, she used to drive us mad listening to radio, and she'd just talking to, listening to boats and planes going past.
Yeah, absolutely, and logging it.
and logging it all down, writing it all down, and it's just useless information, really.
It's not useless information. It's information. There's no such thing as useless information.
Well, I didn't really want to know why a boat was going into Southampton.
That is an entirely different matter. You not wanting to know it means it's useless to you.
That's
But
right.
there you are. But yeah, Morse code, once you've got it in, you can't get it out. It just slows down.
Well, apparently it was... You'll be able to understand this one, then. Apparently, in the nose of the doodlebug, it went da-da-da-dit.
Da-da-da-dit. Well, that's...
Something like that.
Well, da-da-da-dit is papa, P. That's just the letter P. Da-da-da-dit, da-da-da-dit. But it might not... It might not be sending a signal as such. That might just be an interrupted tone that you are receiving. But that's how you'd recognise it.
Well, she recognised it.
Yeah.
They got a message from HQ saying there's something coming over tonight. We don't know what it is, but listening on your airwaves.
Yeah.
And her and 5 other girls were just in the radio room and said, I found it. Tune into frequency ABC or whatever it was. They said, we found it. So they sent 2 Spitfires up, and the following day she got this telegram back saying, congratulations, girls, first doodlebug detected.
I wonder why. I wonder why the doodlebug emitted. Now, we don't know that it was sending it as
So
such.
the Germans would know where it was.
Well, possibly, but I don't think they would do a DF on it because it's ever moving, and they'd need it to do a direction finding exercise. They'd need it, really, in those days, I would have thought they'd need it to be stationary, and they'd need 2 readings from it at least in order to do a direction find. They might want to know when it stops, and I suppose that if the signal was being transmitted back to them, they would hear it stop and presume that it's fallen, and if they count them, they'd have a machine for counting. If they count the papas, like if there's one every second, then they know how many seconds it's been flying for, they know what speed it's going at, they know what direction they sent it in, they'd have a good chance of knowing whether it hit the target or not, so that could be the reason.
Right, yeah.
There you are, you see, that's an old... That's an old spec op working far too hard for his money. Have a good day, Peter.
All right, cheers, old bye.
Bye now. Oh, dear. His mum went back to being 17. I went back to being 19 for a moment there, and it wasn't a comfortable experience. Sid in Denton. Hiya, Sid.
Hello, Alan.
What for you?
Da-da-da-dit. You maybe have a pee now.
Have a pee now? Well, that's 2. Can I have a pee, please, Bob? Do you remember that?
Right, yeah.
Go on, yeah.
Anyway, I'm getting a bit cheesed off with this congestion argument, you know.
Go on.
And I keep getting these, like a vivid fantasy, and I'd like to share it with you.
Please do.
Can you imagine, like, Barnum or Chipperfield organising a circus parade round the streets of Manchester, you know, big band, the stilt walkers, the clowns, the cages full of lions and tigers, and followed up by the elephants, you know.
I've got the picture, yeah.
You've got the picture,
I've got it, yeah, I have.
And then he complains that his big top is full. Right?
Go on.
And he says to his chief clown, like, Pat Carney or Coco. What were it?
Coco Carney, go on. He says to Coco Carney, go on.
And what we're going to do about it? So he comes up with this idea. Well, let's give him a congestion charge. Charge him for going on car parking. Charge him for coming off. We'll make a bomb, you know. It's a bit like the Manchester Council. They've leant over backwards in this last few decades to attract crowds into Manchester. They converted Albert Square and St Anne's Square into German market.
It's a market right now. It's what's it called? The produce market or the flower market or whatever.
I can remember the arguments years back. We've got to attack, bring Manchester alive and bring people in.
Yeah.
Even on a bloody big Ferris wheel. Have we brought it back?
It's back. Yeah, you've obviously not been in town. It's huge. Right. You should be able to see it from your house in Prestwich.
They have the cheek to put congestion charge on.
Well, now you see.
They introduce it as if the congestion charge will cure congestion when they've caused the bloody congestion in the first place.
Well, it's a good point. Invite them all in, and then when you get them in, say there's too many. Let's charge them.
Exactly.
Good on you, Sid.
Okay.
We like it. I like the illusion of Barnum, and the term Coco Carney may well stick. You never know. Phil says, I'm listening with interest to your callers, women on the front line. One of the main objections that seems to come through is that women are physically weaker than men. I was recently in the Isle of Man and noticed that as we boarded the plane to come back to Liverpool, the person loading the cases onto the plane from the conveyor into the plane was a young woman. I know how heavy my wife's case was, and this woman was having no difficulty at all. Phil, thank you very much indeed. How heavy was your case, or are you just being sexist again? Dave in Middleton. Hiya, Dave.
Hiya, mate.
What have you got?
It's about this women in the forces and all that being weaker. It's rubbish, isn't it?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, basically, I'm definitely not a sexist, and I'm not on the lines of women shouldn't be there, but women go through a lot more pain than men do over life, births and things like that. So people are saying that women are weaker. I don't believe it.
They're not, they're not less able to endure pain. There are some strong arguments, and you just put one of them, saying they're better able to endure pain, indeed may well even be designed to endure pain. But the having babies and all that sort of gubbins, which can be quite painful, I'm led to believe, all of that goes on, yes. However, the women of equal size to men will not be as strong, in that I mean not able to lift as heavier weights, for example.
I think it's all down to the willpower. So.
Well, it's not, is it? Because if you look at weightlifting competitions, the man's competition, whatever weight it is, whether it's the snatch and grab or whatever, the man lifts, and they're both concentrating really hard and doing it to the best of their ability, but the weights that men lift are heavier than the weights that the equivalent woman lifts. In running, the 100 metres, the time for the fastest man is faster than the fastest woman. The marathon, the man and the woman, again, the man of equal ability wins. So there are differences, physical differences, that affect performance. That's not to say they're stronger, weaker or anything. They're just different, and therefore, in general, women are less strong, less fast than men.
I'm not sure about that. Well, maybe a lot of cases, but there's women out there or girls out there my age.
There are women out there that can outrun me. Dear God, there are people out there that can outrun me of both genders and indeed all ages, but there are women out there that can outrun me. There are women out there that can lift more than I can. There are women out there that can stand pain better than I can. That's not the point. If you just look at those who have spent their life doing something, and you look at the best weightlifter in the world, be he male or female, the male will be able to lift more than the female. That's a fact. Look at the Guinness Book of Records. It's there, staring you in the face. The same with the 100 yards dash. They're both at the peak of their performance, but the man's performance is faster. So there are... well, that's the point we're making. And so you have to say, well, if at the highest level, the most demanding level, the man is faster, taller, whatever, can jump higher, all those things, then surely on average the same applies. So average squaddy male is stronger in terms of what he can lift, more enduring in terms of his speed over 100 miles, or indeed his speed over 10 yards is faster than the average female squaddy.
Oh, yeah.
So there's the difference.
Yeah, but it's still... I don't get the women shouldn't be in the army thing. Because they want to be there, they've signed up for it, and that's what they want to do. And
if that's what they want, who are we to stop them?
Face a few bullets, and it's their choice to do it.
Absolutely so. Good on you, Dave, sorry. Thank you very much indeed. Another David. David in Sales says, back with a congestion charge now. It ain't going to go away for some time yet. As I understand it, if the congestion charge goes ahead, drivers who have to commute daily into the zone would then be paying an additional £1,100 plus per year in tax. This would no doubt rise to almost double that figure shortly after the system was established. On the other side, £3 billion of our money would be spent building brand new infrastructure. Once complete, the new infrastructure will be handed over to private companies so that they might offer an efficient, low-cost alternative to using our cars. Yeah, right, says David. More like, our infrastructure would be used to line the pockets of a few cronies of the government, as usually happens, and as far as a choice for us, Hobson's springs to mind. Nationalise the land-based transport systems of this country, then I'll vote for the congestion charge. There's a thought. David in Sale. Nationalise the land-based transport systems in this country. Is that the way forward? I suspect many would say yes. I suspect many would say no. I wonder how many it would be on either side. I wouldn't dare hazard a guess. Not the faintest. I'm all for female fighters as long as they've got fashionable Kevlar kit. Neil in Bebington, simultaneously explaining that he knows all about military hardware, knows all about military dress, and knows absolutely nothing about anything else, but nonetheless entertaining for that. Becky Want is next. She's indoors. Obviously no one's offered her a backhander to go and perform at their place. So, such is life. How will the woman eat? I'll see you tomorrow. Ta-ra.
Are you finding yourself doing more work for no more money and with no training? Manchester